It's a very important positive news that's not priced in yet. It will impact Bitcoin's price a lot. And I think going back to more than 100K is a very conservative guess or speculation. One thing scares me about maybe Bitcoin price, but more about this industry, is that we don't see much real innovation in this cycle.
Hello, welcome back to Trade Secrets. And today I'm joined by Bitget CEO Gracy Chen. Gracy, how are you doing?
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us on the show. Look, Gracy, we're going to get straight into it. If your whole career depended on this question, what would you say? Is Bitcoin going to end the year higher or lower than it is now?
Now, oh my God. I wish I have a crystal ball now on my hand and I can tell the future. I think, well, by the way, today, because right now we know Bitcoin just went up from the 63K-ish to 70K. And that's mainly driven by more crypto-friendly sort of, Clarity Act and then the White House conference that President Trump hosted yesterday. So there were a lot of hypes right now. But if I'm going to pretend like 70K versus end of the year, I think this is really hard to predict. and it depends on a few factors that is totally out of our control, right? Like for example, whether there's an interest rate increase end of this year, like the FOMC interest increase. I think the prediction right now is around 30% plus that there will be an increase. If that happens, Bitcoin price should go down, at least theoretically. But then Bitcoin is so much different than it was like 10 years ago. Now it's so integrated into the traditional financial industry and the macroeconomics. So my guess is maybe around the same range. Wouldn't be too different than it is now, like slightly lower, like 10K, 20K, minus and plus. I think that's my more responsible guess. But if you force me to take a side, I would say I hope at least that Bitcoin price is higher.
Now, you mentioned as well the optimism around the White House. And, we look all over social media now, and a lot of Bitcoiners are getting excited at the potential for Donald Trump to start going in and aggressively buying Bitcoin. Do you think this is a realistic possibility before the end of his administration, or do you think it's a bit all talk, probably not going to happen?
You mean the U.S. National Reserve sort of Bitcoin purchase power, right? Within the next 2 years, my personal guess on that is I think it's unlikely. Reasons are, if you look at the Trump administration's real action for at least the past 1 year, I don't think adding Bitcoin into the National Reserve is something that's like naively, if I want it, it happens sort of play. I'm pretty sure at least the current Trump administration is still relatively crypto friendly, but to add Bitcoin into the National Reserve in terms of purchasing more Bitcoin, that would be a much bigger decision and a lot of debates, a lot of Congress meetings, etc., between two parties, between different stakeholders in this. So that's not just a simple thing. Although I hope to see that, but I think just from a policy perspective, it's probably unlikely. And if it is that simple, maybe it's done already, which we at least don't see it coming right now.
If you like cutting edge markets alpha, make sure you're subscribed to Cointelegraph's Market Outlook newsletter. So if it's unlikely, why do you think Trump alluded to that?
I think number one, Trump needed those votes, those those 20% of the US citizens who hold some sort of cryptocurrency. That's for one. And then the president and maybe his family members are still pretty pro crypto by co-founding World Liberty Financials, for example, by passing Genius Act and trying to pass Clarity Act as soon as possible. Like all these different factors are part of that play. And of course, Bitcoin or USDT stablecoin can enforce the strong power of, for example, the dollar dominance sort of narrative, right? Like if you look at stablecoin, it has to be pegged to USD or something similar, and that increased more scenario or ecosystem for US dollar dominance in terms of global coverage. So from the national level, from the personal level, I think there are a lot of incentives that the current administration are being friendly to crypto, and President Trump himself wanted it to be more, at least a pro-crypto environment that we are seeing.
Now, just speculating here, Gracie, if for whatever reason it turned out in 2 or 3 months they did actually start accumulating and they added Bitcoin to the reserve, how would that change your thoughts on the end of year price for Bitcoin? Are all bets off then and we potentially go back to 100,000, go towards all-time highs? What do you see?
Yeah, I think if that happens, because it's a very important positive news that's not priced in yet, it will impact Bitcoin's price a
Mm,
lot. And I think going back to more than 100K is a very conservative guess or speculation in terms of that. Because the new purchase power from this particular narrative that you're talking about is not just about the US. It's also about states level in the US and many other smaller countries who are looking at how the United States or Fed level are incorporating their national reserve, which as an industry participant in crypto, I'm definitely optimistic that at least I think Bitcoin is digital gold and it's more valuable than gold in the future. By valuable, more valuable, what I mean is maybe the market cap. One day, Bitcoin market cap will surpass gold. It's our millennials sort of mindset. I hope
yeah.
many national leaders, etc., share that mindset. But again, this is highly speculative and it is personal opinion. So I wouldn't be able to represent Bitget on that and no financial advice. So give enough disclaimers here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a show where there's no financial advice, just all opinions, predictions, and guesses. So, tell us, Gracie, besides the price, then, if that does happen and Trump does execute the accumulation of Bitcoin this year, outside of Bitcoin's price, what happens for the rest of the world? You mentioned smaller countries and states. Do you think it becomes a domino effect and very quickly where other countries start going, well, if the US have started doing it, we must do it, and they jump on really quickly, or it will still be a slow effect for other countries?
I think it will be a gradual effect, and it will impact a lot of countries, but not all. At least I don't see China going
Yeah.
after that. So there are still many other big economies who are not that friendly when it goes to cryptocurrency. But many smaller countries, for example, Czech Republic, I think one or 2 years earlier, Czech was also discussing like on their Congress level whether they should also buy Bitcoin as part of the national reserve, right? So I think there are many economists who will follow as a domino effect, but it wouldn't be all, and you wouldn't be like US start to do this in let's say November, and then everyone follows in December. It wouldn't be that fast because everyone has their own political system that they need to navigate in order for this to come true. But I'm guessing, maybe 10 countries, 10 more countries that we will see that really started to purchase within, I don't know, half a year. But again, those are very speculative, and I'm not a political expert, so it's based on my gut feelings.
Does that push the $1 million Bitcoin mark that, we've had Brian Armstrong, we've had Kathy Wood say that's a potential before 2030? If we do see an accumulation by the US government and then other countries start accumulating as well, do you think that $1 million price mark is potentially going to happen sooner than 2030?
$1 million price mark, I think that's very optimistic. It's nearly 15 times, more than 15 times than the price now. And sorry, less than 15 times, but around there. But I actually, personally, I don't think it will be achieved within 2030. The reason being, if you look at the past 4-year Bitcoin cycles, the increase of like the ratio of the all-time high in that cycle and all-time low in that cycle keep decreasing. So if
Right.
we calculate this using the past 4-year cycle, which the low is, I don't know, like 1.17K after FTX collapse, and then to 126K, which was before 1010 last year. That's about an 8 times. So if that happens again, and we consider, I don't know, 60K as this year's all-time low, even if you times that by 8 or 7, it wouldn't hit 1 million. So it's just speculative mathematics that I'm doing here. But again, my point is within 4 years and the present Bitcoin cycle, 100 million price mark is very optimistic.
And do you think that formula stays pretty much in place regardless of what major catalysts, like, nation buying Bitcoin, ramping up across the world? Do you think that doesn't change that formula of every cycle, the all-time high and all-time low gap gets smaller and smaller?
My personal take on that is I still stand by my narrative and the rationale and logic, because if you look at, again, the last 4-year cycle, all-time high was created mainly because of the institutional purchase power. And for all those, major companies, including ETF and DAT holders, purchasing so much Bitcoin, again, the increase is 7-8 times of the all-time high and all-time low. So for the same thing to happen, I think you already need at national level sort of purchase power. And it's not just one nation. Hopefully it's a lot of nations. So if we can have another 7 times of the current all-time low, I think that's already quite a base case or even optimistic case already. And that's, at least that's how I think about it.
And is there anything that scares you about Bitcoin right now, Gracy?
I think one thing scares me about maybe Bitcoin price, but more about this industry, is that we don't see much real innovation in this cycle. All the innovations that are meaningful are DEX or CEX related, RWAs, real world assets. It's somehow trading related. It does make sense because when people said blockchain can be, Web3 and revolutionizing Web2 and, decentralized and GameFi, NFT, etc., I didn't really buy in that. And I think the result, as well as meme coin, I just hate memes. I'm very very public about this, and people, some of my users hate me for that because Bitcoin, Bitget does list some
Yes. Yeah, of
memes, and that's
course.
part of us being an exchange. But at least myself, I don't like speculative tokens like memes. Um, but that brought up the issue in terms of, yeah, if you look at the past 4 years, let's say after FTX collapse, what are some real innovation you can think of? I can think of hyperliquid. I can think of poly market, prediction market, maybe Athena. Then no much left there. Maybe RWAs, like some great companies, broker dealer license companies like Alpaca, who helped us in Binance to offer US stocks to our global users, but they are all finance and trading related. So that's one thing I worry about this industry. The innovations in cryptocurrency industry is so little that if you look at maybe our next door neighbor of AI industry,
Yeah, of
where there's so
course.
many killer apps coming up and existed for the past few years, a lot of talents also migrated to AI, and there's so much more development over there. So that's something I worry about our industry.
And now, not only with talent, people say regarding AI, but also the capital as well. A lot of people point to AI as taking capital away from crypto. But what you were saying about innovation, do you think that is to do with maybe the lack of venture capital funds now coming into crypto, or more so the fact that there's so much regulatory uncertainty at the moment? We're still waiting for the Clarity Act, that people are maybe holding back on building what they want to build until they get a little bit more certainty, and as a result, more funds flowing in from VCs.
I think it's a chicken and egg problem because there are less innovation and less people who are really seriously building something that users need. Then there are less opportunities for capital increase, and hence less VC and hence less project. So it's a spirally down, or it wouldn't be that spiral yet, but it is for sure a spirally down sort of effect that that we need all of those factors to be able to work. Another thing is, at least for the previous cycles, a lot of projects who raised a lot of funds from their community, from their investors, they are then listed on major exchanges like Binance and us, and then the projects just stop really
Mm,
innovating.
yeah.
At least this mechanism, like you get a lot of tokens, either in Ethereum or Bitcoin or stablecoin, and then you issue your own token, sort of like the ICO model, very much similar to IPO, right? But you were ICO'd or IPO'd in that perspective without having a really matured product. You are just pitching, or you have a good relationship with exchanges maybe. You get your tokens listed, but the product market fit, for example, is not there. So it doesn't reward people who are really building. So I think there are a lot of different factors, like the mechanism itself of token issuing an ICO, and then less liquidity in many sectors. Maybe 10-10 last year. After that, we saw a 30 to 40% drop of our users trading volume. And keep in mind, we are a big exchange. We're a top 5 exchange. And then for the smaller exchanges, only June, July this year, I've seen 3 exchanges going down. Yeah, so those are quite tragic in my opinion. But I think, for example, exchanges going down may continue to happen. Any exchanges smaller than maybe a top 10 exchange, I think it's dangerous to put their money there. And it is hard to run an exchange, and to build credibility, to build trust, to maintain a good product and high security level. So um yeah, so these are all different factors that come into play.
So Bitget being one of the biggest five exchanges, as you said before, when you do see other major exchanges shut down, being a competitor, is it something that you're happy about, or is it something that's upsetting because it says something bigger about the industry?
I'm definitely not happy about that. By the way, there were exchanges that I like, for example, founders that I knew, um, but I lost
Mm.
contact to them now. Like they just don't reply any message. I've even had money in one of those
Uh,
exchanges that went down recently. Not a lot, just like 1,000 USDT when I was testing some altcoins that they listed, but we did not. But again, if that happens to me, I think the retail users are facing a more serious loss um, by those exchanges going down, and that will hurt the industry. So I wouldn't be happy for that. But I would say, um, just very subjectively, we need to look at this from many different perspectives. From a user's protection perspective, from, for example, me running an exchange, like what can we learn from, for example, X going down. Like it was one of the largest exchanges who invented perpetual, and perpetual is a key business or key asset that we enable our users to trade. Yet BMax went down, and Arthur Hayes like taking a break recently. I think I saw a tweet the other day that he is experimenting with his health or what. But basically, those people behind those exchanges, um, I think I just use those examples to keep reminding myself and our team that we really need to continue innovating, not like sleeping on our previous achievement. We really need to think about what our users need, what our retail users need, what our institutional users need, and be really stay to the so-called first principle. And what is first principle? What is the foundation of running exchanges is, you provide products that users need. You keep you keep hackers away. Like you don't lose fund like what Bybit did last year, and you continue, iterating and have a strong team that it's not like doesn't sleep, but pretty much like they don't sleep and they continue to work hard, right? The good quality will always beat the bad quality. The cheaper price will beat the more expensive price. It's just simple like that, and that's what I call first principle in our industry.
Now, you mentioned before that you hate meme coins. Obviously, across the board right now, meme coins are red. Can you speculate for us, Gracie? Do you think there is a time where we see another meme coin mania, much against your wishes, of course?
Well, we see another meme coin mania, like about 1.5 year ago when, for example, Trump issued his meme coin. I Well, there be. I doubt. The reason I doubt, I think number one, there will always be some altcoins that perform very,
Mm,
very, very, very well, like 100 times in a day or 1,000 times in a day. That's very
yeah.
common. There will always be one or two tokens like that on one day. But um, but it doesn't mean it will stay there, right? It can also go down much faster and much stronger. Ultimately, I look at the underlying value and what this token is creating as a value, or as utility. But memecoin by default doesn't create that sort of value. If you say community is a value, okay, maybe. Um, but again, if everyone is making money, who is losing money? uh, it won't just happen like before. And I guess a lot of meme coins that performed crazily in the past 2 years, if you look at their current price, you also saw the playbook. Like
Mhm.
retails are not stupid. They were fooled once. I don't think they want to be fooled again. So that's how I look at it. But well, there be another, certain, at least certain people who strongly believe in certain altcoins, and then those altcoins also perform very well. I think again, just mathematically, this will always happen. But if you look at this as a bigger group, as a longer term, it wouldn't be sustainable for all the altcoins to go, crazy like that.
Is there an altcoin with utility that you're particularly bullish on at the moment?
Although industry saw some beef that we have with hyperliquid, I do like hyperliquid, and I think hype also went up a lot yesterday because of the more crypto friendly policy towards them. So that's probably one altcoin that I'm bullish on right now, especially if CFTC really find a way to let Hyperliquid enter the US market properly. But I'm like today, I don't really hold any altcoins. Most of my portfolio are in either Bitcoin or like SP 500. I also don't trade that much because of my busy schedule running a
Mm.
large exchange. So I don't even hold Ethereum and Solana nowadays. Maybe a little, like less than 1% of my portfolio. But yeah, most of my portfolio are in Bitcoin and US stocks.
So, as somebody that just holds Bitcoin as part of its digital assets portfolio, would you say between now and the end of the year, obviously a lot of people thought that $60,000 was the bottom for Bitcoin. Would you say it would be smarter for retail investors to DCA from now until the end of the year, or look at now as kind of near enough to the bottom and put in a larger stack now?
Mm, well, at least other than Bitcoin and US stocks, I also have a lot of stablecoin. And that says something about my personal opinion on Bitcoin's price and maybe asset price. That I'm parking my stablecoin there, just
Hmm.
doing 3-4% annual return, doing some wealth management, but parked there waiting for opportunities to buy back those assets. Yeah. So to answer your question, I'm just telling you how my portfolio looks like. And I think that kind of answered the question in terms of whether 70K is the all time low in this cycle. I doubt that. I do think Bitcoin price is highly volatile, and DCA is a good strategy rather than all in. But again, this is no financial advice, and I might be wrong. I may even hope that I'm wrong, um,
Yeah.
because I just don't want to be that risky in terms of holding maybe 100% of my portfolio in Bitcoin.
And as well, Gracie, every analyst and every executive has a different take on where Bitcoin is going. Last year, we saw a lot of them were wrong. And this year, there's a lot of people that are saying Bitcoin might bottom in October, and then others have been talking around it. It has to go down to 40,000 before we see like a real bottom as well. So, for the retail investor that's hearing all these different price predictions and not knowing where the bottom is, it can be a bit overwhelming. What would you say to your everyday retail investor on taking on these bits of information?
Mm. I would say 50K is a number that I'm looking at for my personal Bitcoin buyback sort of price. But again, keep in mind, I'm not an analyst. I'm just an exchange CEO, and we are not good at analyzing Bitcoin price. We're just good at providing a trading platform for all the analysts and traders to act and to trade. So I wouldn't say whatever I predicted is that meaningful, but again, it's just my personal sort of thought around now. I don't have a particular date or month in mind that I think Bitcoin could hit 50K. Later this year might be a good estimate, or maybe next year, at least if you compare again the 4-year cycle, um, just like ruler by ruler sort of comparison. November 2022 was the last all-time low. But I think the catalyst could be very different. At least right now, I don't see major exchanges having issue like what FTX did. Because FTX sort of problem happened not because of exchange business being troublesome. It's mainly because they commingle their users' fund. And I think all the centralized exchanges learned a lot from that lesson that we don't touch users' fund. I think that's very, very key. But is there other market players in the industry that could face black swan event? I think there are. I can't give names now. I do have a few candidates in mind, but I just don't want to say that out because it's again very speculative and it may have an impact. But I think anyone who is very big but not having a proper, for example, auditing and safeguarding of users' asset and then compliance, like all these issues might be problems to cause a black swan event. And if that happens, and again, if interest rate keeps going up, I think those are reasons that Bitcoin price can go lower than it is now.
Amazing. Gracie, thank you so much for joining us on Trade Secrets.
Okay, thank you.